Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot, everyone, for being here, for taking the time. Good afternoon for the people in Europe. Good morning to the people in the Americas. And as Ole mentioned, the goal today is to talk a bit about generative AI, agentic AI, how it can be used for a specific business case that is interacting with tables, with relational databases. But I think before we go into the main topic of the talk, it's important like to have few introductions. Like the first one is of myself and Jorge Salazar Rios. I'm an AI consultant and located in Colombia. I love all the topics related with AI, with generative AI, so it's very, very exciting for me to be here to share this information with you. The second introduction is going to be about SoftServe, the company, and the third one about AI, because now we are in all this hype and very justified of agentic AI, generative AI, large language model competition between big companies. But I think it's good to know how we reach that point, like to have a bit of context and to enjoy more when we go to the main topic that is Talk2DB. So about SoftServe, we are 32 years old. We were created in Ukraine by university professors, and that define a lot of our culture and how we do things. For us, like innovation, to support our colleagues, our associates in their development, to give them tools to be better every day is it's crucial. And we also apply that to our clients. We always try to go the extra mile. It's part of our values. And now we are in many places. As I mentioned, we started in Ukraine, but many years ago, the headquarters moved to Austin, Texas, and now we have offices, clients, associates in many different countries, as you can see in the map. As a company, our main target with our clients is like to support them in the IT path, helping them to develop custom-made solutions, advice, giving them advice of what is good for them, which path might be useful to take, and creating like that synergy in which we create win-to-win situations. To do so, we are divided in center of excellence. In my case, I'm part of the data science team, part of the intelligent enterprise center of excellence, and there we have big data, IoT, robotics. We have also a research and development team. We have critical service, DevOps related uh, topics, solutions architects, and PDN and BA for business nuances and business intelligence, business knowledge. And that's who we are as a company in the big picture, as a team. The AI practice, we have more than 200 people. It means we have a big force to support our clients, but also to support our colleagues. When someone joins Observe, it's gonna have like access to many brilliant of colleagues that I have the luck to share with. We have some colleagues with PhDs. If we include big data, IoT, augmented reality, we have more than 5,000, 1,500 people. We have more than 2,000 projects, so we have a know-how of many different topics: artificial intelligence, MLOps, advanced analytics, in different business cases, in verticals, retail, fintech, healthcare, public sector, and yeah, so on and so forth. On top of that, we are strong partners with NVIDIA, GCP, AWS, Azure, Cisco, Dell. So we have everything to support our clients, as I mentioned, and also our internal clients that are our associates. For us, both are super important. So now we finished the second introduction. Took around 5 minutes. I think it's good enough. Now, this is the longest one, maybe the most relevant one for the talk of today. And it's the introduction to the AI, how we reach the place we are now where a company like Meta is paying $100 million to hire one person who knows a lot about AI. So how we reach that point? There are two ways to approach it. Like the first one, we can start in the early 1900, the telephone, electricity, automobiles, industrial revolution, how we did things change a lot, how we were as a society changed a lot. And we can go step by step to reach what we have now, that there is like AI in the spotlight, but sometimes we forget that for AI to develop, we need a crazy amount of energy. So energy storage, energy production is crucial. We are reaching a point where AI is so powerful and capable that robotics it's already here, but in in the next corner, it's gonna be something we cannot even imagine. Like your own chat GPT in the head of your robot at home doing everything. So one approach is go from 1900 to 2025, but I think it's too broad. We don't have the time to go that much in detail. The other approach, it's why usually Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, like to do, is he jumped right away to 2012 when the GPU revolution for computing power showing that more computing with huge data sets can do everything. And he started there up to physical AI. That is like the next step that is around the corner. But I think that one is too constrained, and I want to go somewhere in the middle. Like I would like for the introduction of today to start in the 1950s when AI was mentioned for the first time. In 1956, there was a conference. It was called the Dartmouth Conference, and few brilliant people organized it. Marvin Minsky and John McCarthy are like the main names. And John McCarthy was the one who said, what's AI? Artificial intelligence is it's gonna be a process which will allow computers to do everything humans are doing, and in few years they might replace us. So it was very innovative. They start working in the theory. There were two camps, like two branches. Like Marvin Minsky, he was going for like connectionism and perceptrons, like what we know as deep neural networks. Like we try to mimic the brain, creating those connections between different units. And the other camp, the one from John McCarthy, was symbolism, and that was like to embedded rules into computer programs to do human tasks. Like for instance, like the chatbots 10 years ago. If you ask A, the answer is 1. If you ask B, the answer is 2. And that kind of approach is less expensive computational wise. So it meant that in those first years after 1956, that symbolistic approach of expert system were called was taking traction. In parallel, Marvin Minsky was trying with neural networks, but he realized it was not working. So it's a crucial year for humanity. I just realized that like a few years ago was 1969. Usually people think the main event that year or the only event was the man landing in the moon, but a lot of things happened that year. And one of those was that Marvin Minsky, the one of the fathers of AI, published a paper saying, perceptrons are not going to work. We need a lot of deepness in the neural network. We don't have computation, so I don't have much hope here. And it took away a lot of the funding for AI. It was called an AI winter, the first one. And in parallel that I mentioned, this is just because I find it interesting, like many things were happening. So man was landing in the moon in 1969. Also, the first demo of human computer interface with a mouse and a keyboard took place. The first attempt for the internet support by ARPANET also happened in 1969. The conceptual idea for the microprocessor of Intel, that is what power the AI revolution for many years, also took place that year. So AI was in in a second plane. However, with the symbolic approach, it was possible like to do things like simple chess players, Eliza kind of chatbot that it was a therapist that was rule based. But at some point in the 70s, again, like there is not enough computation. If we want expert system with those kind of rules, we are not gonna manage it. We are not gonna reach real world applications. And a second AI winter happened. And only later, when we have faster computer, we start collecting big data, was that the game changed. During those winters, like all the theory development took place, like convolutional neural networks were developed that are for computer vision, recurrent neural networks were developed that are for natural language processing, like the first approaches. But for instance, with computer vision at the end of the 80s, Jan LeCun, that used to be like the biggest AI name in Meta, now with all the revolution, someone else might be, but he developed an algorithm to recognize numbers, but it stayed in the lab. It was only in the 2000s and late 90s that we start seeing application of AI, like, okay, we can solve regression problems. We have some features and we predict the price of a house, or we can solve classification problems. Uh, we send information and we cluster clients based on the level of risk of paying a loan back. So the community starts seeing like the potential. However, it was still like in doubt what's going to happen. This is the future, is not until 2012. Now we finally reach like the point in time that Jensen Huang like to refer to. There is a competition called ImageNet, and a professor, her name is Fei Fei Li. She collected a lot of images and put labels on them. So every year, the best teams in the world were competing to see which team could have higher accuracy, which team could identify more pictures correctly, and it was reaching a plateau. And a small team that Jeffrey Hinton, that he won the Nobel Prize last year, he was like the mentor. Ilya Sutskever, the guy who tried to take down Sanatman like a year and a half ago from OpenAI, and Alex Krzyzewski, I think is his name. It's funny because the other two names are more famous, but Alex was the one coding. That's why the architecture is called AlexNet. They create a convolutional neural network based on GPUs that change everything. Like Ilya Sutskever thought, if we have a lot of computation and we have enough data, great things are going to happen. We just need computation and data. They drive to USA, they bought some GPUs, they shipped them to Canada, they developed AlexNet, and they increased like the benchmark like between 10 and 15 points. So people there realize, okay, yeah, this makes sense. GPUs can help us a lot, and more computer power are the future. So a lot of computer vision novelties start to happen, and a lot of novelties in natural language processing. Google was said to be the father of everything, to be the leader. They have Demis Hassabis that he also won a Nobel Prize last year, just to have a context. These people are already winning those kind of recognition. He was going full power with reinforcement learning, and someone else inside Google developed something called transformer. And in 2017, they published a paper called "Attention is All You Need," and that's like the pivotal moment for generative AI, Before, with convolutional neural networks and with recurrent neural networks, like we were, for instance, checking a picture by pieces. So we check one corner, we move down and check the next, and so on and so forth, and we check piece by piece to make an analysis. With sentences or books, like with text, we were checking the first word, how the first word related with the second, and how with the third. So when we reached the 1,000 word, we already forgot what was in the first one, and that was very difficult to scale. It was the best we had at the moment, but it was not ideal. With attentional unit, if you have a book, you check all the book in parallel, and you see how initially words relate with each other in the first page, with the 10 page, with the 100 page. In the next layer, you check how paragraphs relate, and you start to have a lot of understanding of what's going on, like what you feel when you interact with ChatGPT. And that was developed by Google. But inside Google, if your idea is not going to produce a revenue of $1 billion plus in the next year or two, it's difficult. It's difficult for something to get traction. So they just published the paper, and it became kind of open information. And at the moment, OpenAI was already created with the idea of counterbalance Google power. To get funding, they were playing with reinforcement learning. But there, Ilya Sutskever saw the potential, this is what we need. And they developed the GPTs, the generative pre-trained transformers. That is what powers ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and most of the tools we have available at the moment. They created the first version. Not much happened. They saw the potential creating a small text, generating a small text. For the GPT-2, they saw, okay, yeah, this makes sense. It's evolving with more computation. This might be dangerous for humanity. Let's keep it secret and just show them a bit for community to have a flavor. Google was still relaxed until GPT-3 was out. It was make available for developers through an API, but no one paid much attention. Strangely, they released DALI image generation. The public react better, like, oh, this is innovative. We can write something and create a picture. The typical example is like a chair with the shape on an avocado. And DALI created. And inside OpenAI, just an exercise, they released ChatGPT. They never thought it would be very successful because API available one was not a big deal. And yeah, and the war exploded. They release it, and a lot of press coverage start to happening. The servers start collapsing. Many of the people using it were journalists, so it start to be everywhere. And that's why start like this wave of innovation, of competition. Google have to try to catch up and forget about like constraints and a bit about security. We also have Anthropic with Cloud that were forming OpenAI employees. We have other services as Perplexity now. Even AWS have their own models. And with those kind of chats, like we information, knowledge start to be democratized, and it was a huge step. Like you could ask ChatGPT about history, you could ask to help you with your homework, you could ask for brainstorming about your coding task, but still, it was not enough because you need to execute, you need to go somewhere else to do it yourself, and we start seeing the tools. So now we ask ChatGPT for to design a Quantum code, but also to execute it. And the next iteration is agentic AI. That is what we are gonna discuss today with Talk2DB. And it's like you have kind of an assistant. You tell what you need, and it goes and make it happen. I haven't had the chance to play with the ChatGPT agent yet, but it's what you have seen potentially in the news that I don't know, I want to go to Rome. So it don't tell you where to buy the ticket or which hotel to book or which tours to take. It does everything for you, okay? What are your requests? Which kind of hotel do you want? When do you want to go? And this is your itinerary, this is your plane tickets, these are your hotels. And that can be also applied for business cases like I need to create a report for my colleagues, taking into consideration these databases and this historical information. It goes, does the job, send it to you, you double check it. If it's good to go, you're ready. That's super, super powerful. And what it's gonna be around the corner that we are not gonna discuss in depth today, but it's good to have it in the radar is physical AI. Like we put a super powerful chip with an LLM in a robot, and we have a world-class chef. Yeah, we have an assistant at home. We have someone that can handle a factory floor very well and do jobs that maybe are dangerous for humans today. And yeah, that's how we reached this point. Took me 20 minutes, but I hope it was interesting. And from my perspective, it is worth it, like to set the stage to what we are gonna talk now, like to appreciate it, to understand how we reach here and where we are going. And with next step, let's talk about Talk2DB. As I mentioned, talk to at the very beginning, and probably you forgot, and that's completely okay. Talk2DB and visualization. It's a tool that we develop inside the company with that agentic concept as its heart. With Talk2DB, what we want is to have an assistant that is going to democratize the access to the information. We just ask whatever we want in natural language, like how were the sales of the last quarter in the three main stores of our company. And it gives us a table, it explains us in plain English or plain Spanish or plain Ukrainian, whatever language we want. Like the answer, you sold it this much in this store, this much in this other store, this is lower in 10% compared with the previous quarter. We reached the target or not. That's the kind of interaction we want to reach with Talk2DB. No code required, no previous knowledge about the database itself. The tool create the SQL query automatically. If you ask for a visualization because we think it's going to help us, it does it for us. And on top of that, something that I think is very important, imagine we interact with by 20 minutes with the tool, and after we want to share our result, it creates a report. We explain, from this conversation, A, B, and C are relevant. I want you to add some action items, create a PDF report for a technical team or for a C-level group, and it does it for us. That's like what the Talk2DB does for the user. That was the goal we had, and we built it in a way that is multi-cloud. It can be in AWS, it can be in Azure, it can be in GCP, it can be on-prem. It's easy to escalate. It's easy to customize for our clients. As I mentioned at the beginning, in SoftServe, we are not a product company. We are more consultant company, and we help our clients to reach their goals. And when we develop something, we keep that in mind. So, like to summarize in a more structured way, the problem, whoever was not technical was struggling to have access to the information. If you wanted to be independent, you have to know SQL. If a tool was in place, they were static. So if you want to customize something, it was very painful. You need to ask many people, you need to wait. And at the moment, the data sources start growing, more tables were available. You didn't have access because you didn't know what information was there. So which was our solution? An AI power assistant It write the SQL queries. It make the plots for you. We give it a library as a context, like all the information about the business, about the tables. Our agent, our Talk2DB can check them to make informed decision to be smarter. We keep memory because it's important to be able to ask follow-up question. It's important to check previous conversation if you want to. And on top of it, we create reports at the end to help share your insights. What is the impact it brings into the business? It empowers non-technical staff. It uh, democratizes information a lot. It reduces the dependency on the data teams and both the productivity of the data team because they can focus on the tasks that are more important for a company, on also of the other teams because they can brainstorm and get what they want in nearly real time. It scales easily. We have the logic of the agent. It's very smart. If we put new tables, the agent is able to handle it. The user experience increase a lot. And at the end of the day, we can make informed decisions more quicker. That's like the big win thanks to Talk2DB. In a nutshell, that's what I wanted you to know about Talk2DB. But what are the next steps? I give you a heads up. I want to specifically mention to you who can benefit from it and also explain in detail, still at high level enough to be clear for non-technical people, how it works under the hood. And at the end, to show you a demo of what we have at the moment. That's what is coming in the next minutes. So let's start with who can benefit with such a tool. Like we have a business analyst, that person is not technical, so nowadays depends on the data engineer. Every time wants to analyze a new set of data, it's a bottleneck. Now Emma just have the idea, type it, and get whatever she needs, get the table, get the plots, get a teammate to discuss with the data and the results. We have Alex. He works in a factory floor. It's an operation manager, and he needs to know how are the daily operation. He needs to know if the metrics of the machines. And before, like someone else create a report in whatever frequency it was determined, he received the report, was not real-time information. So at the end of the day, if something happened in the factory, he would realize a few hours or few days later, and a lot of value was lost there. We have Priya, a product manager. She needs to know how the new application is performing, how is the engagement of the user, if the new features are working or not. And now she can just ask, like she has the business knowledge, she knows what needs to be checked before, like we're 3 4 steps before she get the information. Now she just type into the Talk2DB solution, I want to see A, B, and C, and show me the trend, and the magic happens. We also help the BI developer data engineer. He has all the knowledge, he can query easily, but the rest of the company couldn't do it. So David was overloaded all the time doing tasks that maybe were not that strategical for him or the company to unblock others. Thanks to Talk2DB, maybe his work is a bit faster, but mainly he has much more time to focus on what really matters. I don't know, there are some dashboards that are kind of static and are crucial for the company. Some ETL pipelines need to be automated, and now he finally has the time to do those important tasks. Also, in fintech, insurance, when compliance is crucial, before many steps needs to take place, and when regulation changing quickly, with number changing quickly, it was a huge bottleneck. So at this moment, Sophia can just use her business knowledge, ask the right questions, and get the right answers in time. And in marketing, the application is also huge because how you measure the success of a marketing campaign with numbers. And if you don't have the knowledge to extract the relevant data, yeah, you are in a uncomfortable position. Now, Michael, he has a lot of business knowledge, and he just asks, I want to check these metrics, I want to check the return of investment, I want to check the lead conversion, and everything is a hands reach for him. And the last example is Sarah. She's the last example because the demo that we are going to show at the end is related with an human resource database because most verticals, most companies have a human resource department. And in her case, in real time, she can check like attrition rates, how is the engagement rating of the employees. She can check salary ranges, number of employees. And before, probably in some companies, there was a whole team under Sarah to help her reach what she needs. Now she can do it herself. To the two steps we have taken about Talk2DB, like what is it and who can use it. Next step, how does it work? I have mentioned several times democratizing knowledge, democratizing and information reach for everyone. So I'm going to try to be coherent. First, I'm going to show the architecture, but later we are going to go into much simpler diagrams. This is a very high level, just for you to have a glimpse. Like we have the information somewhere that we are going to ask questions to. That's the database. In the left, we have like the intelligence of the Talk2DB agent, everything related with the schema of the database, examples of previous questions, all the business knowledge that goes into a vector store that is like when we add a document to ChatGPT and we ask just about that document, that's what we are doing. Our agent is going to use just that information as an extra context to give us very good answers. We have a front end for the users to interact with the solution. We have some security. We store all the conversations. We store the reports. And like the vector store is like the library of our solution, and the brain is our LLM. Again, very high level. It's just for you to know. The coming diagrams are much more useful to understand how the solution works. Like the whole flow at a high level, we ask a question, a given user asks the question, we check, is this question related with our database or not? If it's not related, we answer. We cannot, don't know, we ask how to make a pizza. We reply, sorry, but this is not related with our database. Please ask a new question. If the question makes sense in the context of our solution, we create the SQL query. We extract the data. We check if the user need a chart, a visualization next to the answer or not. If the user doesn't need it, we just return the answer in English or in the language in which the question was asked. We return also the SQL query and the table in case the person wants to check it. If the user does need a visualization, we send another agent. That's where the agentic part is going. Like we have one agent to create SQL queries, one agent to create SQL visualization, one agent to decide where to go, and the visualization agent create the plot, and we return plot plus everything that I already mentioned. That's a very high level. We go step by step, but I think it might be worth it. How we validate the question. Like we check the history of the conversation in case it give us valuable information. We check the information related with the database, and we see, is this input relevant? It's aligned with what we can answer, yes or not. If it's relevant, we twist the question a bit, we improve it based on the context we have, and we return the new query, the new request, we return the history. If the question is not related, as I mentioned, we go back to the user. If the question is related, we go back to the next step, that is the SQL generation agent. The SQL generation agent, we have the final request that is already refined. We have the history. We go to that brain, to no, not to the brain, to the library. We go to the library of our solution and check what is useful, which tables do we need to answer this question, which examples from the past might help us, which business knowledge is relevant for what the user is asking for. We give that all of that to the LLM as a context. Library information, history, chat information. We have also a prompt template with indication of what needs to be done. We generate a SQL query, we run it. If we get an error, we generate it again, and we can decide how many times we are going to iterate. When we finally get a result that is relevant, we return like the answer, the table, and the query. Next step, we decide, do we need a visualization or not? We get all the information we already collected. If we need a visualization, we go to the visualization agent. If we don't need the visualization, we continue the process and give the answer. For the visualization agent, we check, okay, needs a chart. Does the client tell us which kind of chart needs to be visualized? If not, the solution can decide for itself. If we just say, give me this information with a meaningful visualization. In that case, the solution make the decision. If we ask for a bar chart, the solution produce a bar chart. It create the code for Plotlit for it's an interactive visualization tool in Python. It execute the code to make sure it's working, and at the end it returns the code and the plot itself. And in the front end, we do what we want. Like either we run the code again or we just visualize the the chart that was already generated. And finally, what I mentioned earlier was the report generation. 10, 15 minutes of conversation. We want to have a final report in PDF. So we ask, like, I want you to be very concrete, simple language that everyone non-technical can understand. The solution get all the history, organize images, text, and create the report in the way it was asked for, and the output is a PDF. This piece of the presentation, for me, it's crucial because I want you to understand like what it's under the hood, why is this working, how is it working, and hopefully it can give you ideas, which kind of business problems, business cases can be solved with this, how can we make this better, and that was like one of my goals with this part of the presentation. And now to wrap up before going into the Q&A session is where does Talk2DB add value? I want to showcase a demo here, but maybe as a kind of summary, like the key features that we were discussing. We can validate the input. We have a conversation engine that creates SQL queries. We have a library that brings the relevant data dynamically. We have memory to create reports and to ask follow-up questions. We have the smart visualization. We have reports. We can see previous conversation because we have history management. We more in the technical side, we run things asynchronous, like to improve the performance of the solution. We have quality assurance and monitoring under the hood. This is ready for enterprise scaling. Uh, what we want at the end of the day, access to the data using natural language. And as I mentioned a couple times now, the LLMs are very good, so we can do it in multiple languages without any problem. And which use cases do we imagine? We need ad hoc questions to be answered. We need to check the performance of our factory. We need to create reports for broader audiences. We need to check how our marketing campaign is working. We need to keep in mind previous questions to give relevant answers now. We need our decision makers to have quick access to the information in a transparent way. Our databases grow and grow, so it's impossible to keep up. So we need an assistant that give us that opportunity of just asking, what are the new tables? What can I ask from my database? We have a tool for knowledge assistant for data governance and auditing, and even we can work in trend detection, anomaly detection. Those are some of the use cases that you can keep in mind if you want to play with similar solution, or if you want to offer it to a client, or yes, or if you want to implement it in your own company. And finally, the demo. This is our UI. This is our Talk2DB tool. It's customizable. We log in. As I mentioned, is human resource example. In the left, we have the history of the previous conversation. We had the chat window. We asked like, how many employees do we have per department in our company? So it goes, it gathers the information, give us the answer in English. We can check which SQL query was used. We can check the table behind that answer. We can also ask very complex questions, like there I'm asking, no, first chart. We got the question and we asked a three map chart, and I stopped the demo there. Didn't want to stop it because previously practicing, every time I stop it, I just make it jump. Let's hope this time it's not going to jump. So after the first question about how many employees we have in each department, we ask, okay, I want to see a tree map of that information. If we create the interactive chart that is easier like to grasp, we see which department the operation has most of the people, and that special services in the and support in the top right. I don't think it's impossible for you to read it, but the top right is much smaller than the top left. So it gives us access to the information much quicker. In the next question, I'm gonna ask something complex that require many joins to consider many tables. So for employees in Bangladesh, I want to see 10 things in parallel. So it creates the very complex query, it gathered information, answer my initial question in English, but we can also see the table with all those columns. We can download the table for later use. We can also ask questions related with mathematics, like with numbers. Here we ask for the average salaries in the company. Sometimes the questions are too complex and we use Python, if not simple SQL query statements. We can also ask other types of charts, like a line chart with trends of attrition, uh, people fired, people who decide to leave the company. And at the end, we create a report. I want a summary and I want you to give me 3 insights per point. We press the button and we get the PDF. It has all the information, very well structured. It has the plots. It has the recommendation actions for each section of the report. And this is ready to share with our colleagues. It took me around 45 minutes to reach to this point. So we still have around 10 minutes for questions and answers. So yeah, thanks a lot for your attention. I hope you find it useful or fun or both. Yeah, and let's start with the Q&A.
We
Jorge,
can
thank
put it.
you very much
May
for those questions. Sorry, was someone talking?
no, proceed, please.
Yeah, Jorge, thank you very much for this amazing session. I personally learned a couple of things. I have a couple of my personal questions, but I will reserve time for later for myself and will let our guests ask their questions first. So, the person who was speaking, were you willing to ask a question? I don't see your name. Sorry, I don't call you by the name, but okay. In case you have a question, you can post it to the chat and I will read it aloud. So for now, let's start with the questions that we have posted there. So Alexander is asking what AI model is used. I assume this is was means for the engine of the demo that Jorge showed. And how you build the rack, what you take as a base
Yeah,
solution.
thank you, Alexander, for your question. So for this demo, we use GPT-4o Mini to generate the text answer and O3 Mini for the visualization. But we can change. Like, we have run tests with Nova models from AWS. We can use Gemini. Yeah, we can use Cloud. That about the model. And how we build the rack, we have an automated pipeline that check the metadata of the database and create one index with database information. With that information, we trigger another pipeline that can create automatically example questions and answers with SQL query in the middle that we use as reference. The client, the owner of the data can also add information to the knowledge base index, can add examples to the example index. And we have a third index that is not automated. We run some experiments and we saw it didn't bring that much value about the business context. There we can have PDF, we can have transcript of meetings. That's how we create the rack to bring the dynamic context to our solution.
Thank you for the answer. Oleg is asking, does this solution work only with numerically rich databases, database tables, or also it can work with text fields and embeddings?
Very good question, Oleg. This one is focused on numbers mostly. If we bring, if the SQL query brings text, the LLM can handle it. But the way reach to retrieve the information is SQL. We have another in-house tool called Insight Engine that focus on text fields, embeddings, video, images, and they can collaborate. We can have one UI and both tools in the background.
Yeah, thank you, Jorge. Yuri is asking, can Talk2DB consume stored procedures or views?
Yeah, like this is ready to be customized for the client. At the moment, it's just the raw database. But if our client, when we have the business discussion, we realize that it's much better to have views. It's possible. We design it in a modular way that is easy to adapt. And it's a very good question because it's also our feeling. For many use cases, it's better to don't work with the raw data, but to have some views.
Yeah, really good, really interesting question, but all of them are really good. Bogdan is asking, how much time does it take on average to respond in this rack system?
Yeah, very good question. It depends the complexity of the question. It depends the performance of the database, if we have visualization or not. A database that is performing well, we can get an answer only text, mm, maximum 10 seconds, most of the times 5 seconds or so, because we have retrial process inside and we are reformulating the query. It can be optimized for latency, it depends on the client needs. But this current example, let's say around 5 seconds. We want to create visualization we call O3 Mini. It can take between 10 and up to 30 seconds. And just in case RAG is very quick, RAG to bring the context is 200 milliseconds or so.
Kobe is asking, is agent writing queries with those complex joins, or are those queries stored in the knowledge base? And how many tables did the agent have to choose from in the demo?
Yeah. For this one, we don't have that many complex examples. We have few, but the agent needs to write those queries. It might use some of those examples as a baseline, but that's it. It's writing the queries. This specific use case, I think, have around 20 tables. Up to 30, 40 tables, we feel comfortable, 50 columns per table with good documentation. In the future, we would like to be able to handle 200, 300, and that would be an excellent stress test for those indexes to see how well the dynamic context is it's working.
Thank you, Jorge. Next question is, do you think that new iteration of Talk2DB can use crawler instead of having summary tables? And is it even feasible to use crawlers instead of tables?
I think it's very possible to use crawlers. I think what we are doing is low-level crawler with our automated script to check the metadata and generate the index. But for instance, in AWS, we can use Glue and use the output of Glue as part of the context. So I do think in new iteration, crawlers are a good option.
Alexander is asking, how do you link the domain with database? I assume the domain means the context knowledge.
Yeah,
Is it Q&A?
excellent.
Is it Q&A from the data owner? Yeah.
No, sorry, Ole. No, it's a great question, Alexander. We do need business knowledge. We only have like the database schema, and we create our own SQL queries. It's a nice, pretty tool, but it's very far from production. We want a robust performance. We need that domain knowledge. We need either conversation and the transcripts, or we need PDFs. We need that like to very fine tune the solution.
Thank you. Next question is from Vyacheslav. How hard does the system rely on normalized data as input, or does the system normalize it on the fly? It uses an LLM to normalize, or it assumes that the structure of the source data doesn't change a lot?
Yeah, we work with relational databases with fixed data schemas. If the data schema change, we can do it. We can acknowledge it automatically, but it takes like half an hour. In the UI, there is an option, update data schema. But we assume when we ask, the data schema is not changing in real time. And if the data is not super clean, but the columns are good enough, when the LLM receives the table, it can handle it on the fly. But small normalization step.
Thank you, Jorge. Oksana is asking where she can try this agent.
Yes, like we are always ready to present demos for internal clients in SoftServe and for external clients. If you're external, you can contact SoftServe. If you're internal, you can contact the data science team, and we would be happy to showcase the demo.
Artem is asking, do you see any challenges around Talk2DB technology which would further research and improve? I'm looking for a topic for scientific research. Would be grateful if you highlight some interesting topics. Very interesting.
Yeah, very good question. Yes. I think one very interesting topic is synthetic data generation, because now we have just 40 tables. It would be amazing to have 1,000 tables with data schemas as complex as we want that doesn't don't have sensitive information. So a large scale data generation of structure information is very useful. And I think also in the dynamic context, there is a lot of room for improvement when we have bigger data schemas. I think, yeah, my educated guess is will struggle with those indexes. There is a lot of room for research there.
Thank you, Jorge. I think that if Artem would be interested, he could find you in LinkedIn or whatever and
Yes,
just contact you about the
certainly.
research. But yeah, really interesting one. Oleg is asking, what is the logic behind answering user requests that need multi-steps in database to answer?
We try to have something modular in such a way that we know where it's failing and to be able to improve each step one at the time. That's why they have there are so many steps under the hood. If our client needs to optimize latency and we have enough business knowledge, we might be able to skip many of those steps.
Um, Dennis is asking, what about row level security and permission? Is it part of the generated SQL?
Yeah, very good question. At the moment, we just have read access to the databases. Like we have a security layer to log in into the solution, but we are not gonna ever change or delete any type of row. We just read information. In the future, if the client needs it, we can develop something that also perform like CRUD, yeah, CRUD things, CRUD tasks.
Thank you, Jorge. Um, Alexander is asking, did you have any struggle with hallucination? Any struggles with hallucinations?
Very good questions. A lot of struggles with hallucinations. That's why the indexes are very important. That's why the business context is crucial. And another potential research topic is how to develop good golden data sets that are wide enough and don't take months for the client to put in place, or even how to create synthetic golden data sets. That would be super cool.
Colin is asking, what is the process to implement this for a specific client? How long does it take? He assumes that this is similar to an accelerator that can be customized for specific clients.
Yes, very good question. Thank you, Colin. Uh, we can run a quick demo just to show the potential in a couple days. They just give us a sample of the data. We run it into what we already have. We give a taste of what we can do. And after, to create a POC slash MVP that is more robust, that includes all the business knowledge, that with evaluation pipelines, it can be around 5 weeks for the team. And at the end of the day, the client can start trying with a small group, and we are just one step from production. That is not what we deliver in that time frame is not a POC, it's much more, it's more like MVP. And we customize it. And that's basic version customized to the client needs without changing much. If they need us to change something deep into the structure, it might take longer than those 5 weeks.
Uh, there's also one question, not from the chat, but from the input forms that was not asked, but because some were asked second time. Is it still make sense to study data analysis like Power BI and stuff, considering that tools like this are developing. I thought that it's also a very interesting one.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, don't have an answer. I love AI, but I don't know where it's going, and it's going very fast. So I think it's important to stay up to date and stay flexible. So if you learn something to now, it's gonna give you insights to learn what is next. Might be called different. You might need to develop a bit more technical skills or more business skills. But I think knowledge is useful, and keeping in mind things are evolving fast. So try to use cutting edge tools to whatever you are doing.
And I have one more question from myself. Uh, but before that, I would say that, guys, amazing questions. I know that not all people are here, but really, really interesting and cool questions today. Amazing discussion. I wanted to ask, is stuff like SQL injection still a thing in like this year? And is it still feasible to do some precautions for the SQL injections when we do systems like that?
Yeah, very good question. Like that's partially what I say is not production ready when after the 5 weeks. There is always the chance, and tools are improving. But if we want to go into production, we need to be sure many times many things are covered. So yeah, even nowadays it's very important to keep in mind guardrails and avoiding SQL injection are crucial.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Jorge. Okay, we're a little bit over time, just 5 minutes, but we had a lot of questions and very lively discussion today. So thank you everyone who participated. Thank you everyone who left, but will rewatch this recording because it was a very, very interesting discussion. I hope that you will join for another time on AI Talks when this will be external, or if you're at SoftServe when it will be internal. So thank you everyone for your attention today, for your time, and I wish you all pleasant evening. Jorge, thank you very much for this amazing presentation. It was honestly awesome.